everybody, this is Mary Wardlaw with National CDA Training, and I'm here to talk to you about advancing your career with the CDA. Now, this training is for anyone who's interested in a career in childcare or preschool, or if you currently work in early childhood but you just want to seek bigger opportunities like a pay raise or a higher level position, this is great for you. Or if you have experience, or if you're just considering working with children, you are in the right place. Now, for those of you who stay till the end of the webinar, I have a very special gift for you. It's something new that I've never tried before, and I'm really excited to see how it goes. And I'm not going to spoil the surprise, but I can guarantee you that it will allow you to get your CDA a whole lot easier. There are so many reasons why I love the CDA as an option for early childhood professionals, but one of the biggest is that it doesn't require any college. It is so much less expensive. You can spend 2 years of your life getting an associate degree and all that money and going to school full time, and that degree is equal to the CDA, which is a credential that, for instance, with our training could take weeks or just a few months to get. So the time you save, the money you save is just an amazing benefit. And in the process, you gain great skills. You are demonstrating professionalism. You create a portfolio that is proof of your knowledge and skills and your ability to work with children. I am so excited that you're here right now because no matter where you are in your career, the CDA can give you an edge. Childcare centers and schools highly seek people with the CDA credential. And in some states, the CDA can in part or fully qualify you to open up your own childcare center. So I want to tell you a little bit about why the teachers with their CDAs are so valued. So if you're familiar around the classroom and workplace and know the reason most teachers leave or lose their jobs, it's simply because they don't know the proper way to address tricky or sticky situations. It helps you to be prepared for the things that happen in the classroom, and it protects you as a teacher, and it protects the program owner or the administrator of the school because they know that you know how to handle situations in the classroom. So they will choose you over someone who does not have the CDA. Also, childcare centers struggle to find and keep qualified teachers. So with your certification, you're already a valuable resource and you're already in high demand. It opens the door for better teaching positions and, of course, higher pay. Now, take a moment to think about how much having a higher salary would impact your personal life and what that could do for you. So many times we, especially in the childcare field, just settle for what we're getting and think, well, it's not a high-paying field in general, so whatever I get is fine. I just love my job. That's not enough. We need to be thinking about what we can do to take us to the next level. There's something that we can do to give us the edge, to give us the ability to have a higher paying position, to make us more qualified, to give us more opportunities, and the CDA provides that for us. I've helped many people like you make that vision a reality of being able to take that next step and get to that next level in their career. And it's my job to do that for you too. And I want to tell you where I started from because I think my story alone can give you a lot of hope and really help you understand how your desires, how your experiences can really propel you into taking that next step. So for me, my journey in early childhood started over 25 years ago, actually when my oldest was only 18 months old, and I was looking for childcare for her. And my husband and I took her to a childcare center and dropped her off, and we left and we came back at 6 o'clock to pick her up. And when I walked in, she was sitting on a bench outside of the program director's office alone, and she was crying, and her tears were just streaming down her face, And she was, that hiccuping, gasping, when you've been crying for a very long time, your little ones have been crying for a very long time. That's what was going on with her. And it just broke my heart because I felt like as a parent, I had put her in a situation that allowed her to be scared and hurt and needing me, and I wasn't there. And I just scooped her up and picked her up in my arms and walked out and never walked back. And in that moment, I knew that I wanted to make it better, not just for me and for my daughter, but for other moms and dads who were in that same situation. I wanted to create a situation for them that they would know that their children are loved and cared for, and that they weren't going to be sitting there alone crying on a bench waiting for them at the end of the day, that they were going to be in someone's arms until they were comfortable enough to venture out on their own and play with the other children. So I started my career at that moment in early childhood. And I started as an assistant teacher, and then as a lead teacher, and then as a program director. And in 2004, I opened my own child care center, and I continued my education along the way. I had a bachelor's in child development, got a master's in business administration, became a CDA PD specialist because I was going to do whatever it takes to make my child care center be the great child care center that moms and dads needed and that kids felt loved and comfortable in. As the years went on, our center grew. I went from 17 kids to 120 kids. I went from 3 staff to about 20 to 25 staff. And things had just really grown quickly, and I was really proud of where we were as a center. But I didn't pay close enough attention to what was happening with the teachers and in the classrooms. And what happened was teachers were not as engaged in the classrooms as they should have been. And there were mistakes happening in the classroom that led to problems in our program. And at one point, we were actually on a provisional license, which every state maybe is a little bit different. But this, and where I'm from, this particular license meant that the state recognized that you were a troubled program and you were kind of, in a sense, on probation. And they needed to see some huge shifts and changes and positive things happening and problems addressed before they would issue a regular license again. So I began to really journey to improve the culture of our program, to try to figure out why teachers were not engaged, to try to correct those mistakes in the classroom. And we worked really hard as a team. I worked really hard as a leader. My administrative staff worked really hard to be the mentors that they needed to be to help lift our program back up out of this. And I am so proud of what we did in a very short period of time. We went from a provisional status with 0 stars. Our state is on a 1 to 5 star rating system, and we had 0 stars. And within 9 months, we were back on a regular license, and we were a 4-star program. And that was just huge for me. And I wanted to make sure that we implemented training and all the support that our team would need to be able to stay at that level and not to fall back into the old problems and the old way of doing things that left us in that bad situation to begin with. Now, one of the first things I did to help create that support and training that my staff needed was to pull together a group of my staff members to go through the CDA process. And I created a live training to help them learn what they needed to learn. So I had a lot of different types of trainings going on. I would give face-to-face trainings. I did this amazing training on literacy and the importance of of what children are learning as far as helping them to be able to read and speak. And, I was really excited about what I was pouring into this training. And they were excited to learn about what was happening. But I noticed something that really shocked me. And I want you to think about this for a second. Have you ever been in a class where you learned a ton of information and your life didn't get any easier? Like, you had all this information, but it didn't transform what you were doing in the classroom. That's what I noticed was happening. I was training my own staff. I was trying different methods, but I didn't see changes in the classroom. You see, after that amazing section that I taught on literacy, where they were engaged in what I was teaching and they were responding and I could tell they were learning, I went into the classroom and I didn't see anything different. I was expecting to see labels on toy bins and signs on the walls and words everywhere and books in different centers in the classroom, but I didn't see any of that. And so I decided that I needed to find a way to train the students so that they were learning how to do things differently. And so that really got me started on a journey to find out what I needed to do differently to make them more successful in the classroom. In my quest to find a better way to teach my staff, I came across this book called Map It by Kathy Moore, and I was blown away by what I learned and actually called her and had a strategy session with her to really deep dive into what I could do differently to teach my staff. And what I learned is that typical training is just an information dump. It doesn't have any impact on how we do things. It only changes what we know. That training tends to look like this. Information, 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 and then a question. Information, 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 answer a quiz. Within 1 week of what we've learned, in most cases with an information dump, we've lost at least 90% of it. We just forget it. It doesn't have any impact on what we're doing in the setting. I learned that there are 2 ways to create behavioral change. The first is to make the goal what the teacher should do and not what they should know. And here's an example of that. So I took these goals at the top here from a typical training that's out there for early childhood educators. And these are what they want you to walk away from the class knowing. So they want you to know this about SIDS. They want you to be able to increase your knowledge about sudden infant death syndrome. And they want to inform early care professionals about safe sleep environments and other risk reduction strategies. Knowing that might be a great thing, but it's not going to change what's happening in the classroom. What we learn to do is to make the goal different. So instead of what we want you to know, we're training you what to do. Number 1, teachers lay infants on their backs in the crib. Number 2, teachers ensure that the crib sheet is tight-fitting and nothing else is in the crib. You see the difference there? Instead of just learning what you should know, having this information dump, you're actually giving concrete steps into how you can do things differently in the classroom. And it makes a huge difference. The second thing that I needed to do to create behavioral change was to create an element of practice. 2 great resources. The first one here is Map It, which I already talked to you about. The second one is Make It Stick, the Science of Successful Learning. So this type of training is actually based on science, and particularly the science that teaches us how to learn in a way that changes what we do in our setting. So we had to create experiences around what we should do. So I had to find a way to stimulate real decisions and real consequences to create this element of practice. So how I did this was through scenario-based training. I pulled together real-life situations that are described in scenario or story form, and you have to go through them and choose how to respond. And the responses are also in story form, and every time you choose a response, you have a consequence, either positive or negative, which is explained through the continuation of the story. So let's try it. We'll take our first scenario training from Math and Science for Infants and Toddlers. Here's the scenario. You are a teacher in the toddler classroom, and while you were supervising your students in the learning centers, you heard Claire saying 1, 2, 4, 7 as she was playing in the dramatic play center. When you asked Claire what she was doing, she said, "I counting." Since hearing this, you've been considering options for how to help your students learn to count. Here are your options. During circle time, you engage students in the nursery rhymes and songs relating to counting, such as 3 Little Monkeys and 1, 2, Buckle My Shoe. Option B, during circle time, you count with your students to the beat of a drum. Option C, when your students are playing in the learning centers, you play songs that are related to counting. What would you choose? Okay, I'm going to go with option A. The next day, you and your students sing the 3 Little Monkeys during circle time. After a couple of rounds of the song, everyone sings along. Later in the day, you hear Claire singing the song correctly as she plays in the dramatic play area. The key concept here is that in order to expose toddler students to counting, teachers should engage them in activities that are appropriate for their cognitive level, such as using nursery rhymes or songs related to counting, like 3 Little Monkeys and 1, 2, Buckle My Shoe. That makes sense, right? Here's another one from our theory application of Jean Piaget. Here's the scenario. As the holiday season winds down and special events and activities you planned for your preschool students have all passed, you recognize that the new year is quickly approaching and you will need new lesson plans and activities starting in January. The pace of the new lesson plans and activities will be quite different from those the past 2 months, as November and December are traditionally the busiest of the year due to the many holidays you celebrate with your students, including Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and Christmas. As you prepare to develop the new curriculum, you consider options for how you will approach creating a developmentally appropriate curriculum for your students. Option A. Since your students are advancing in their learning and development, many of them will be promoting to kindergarten next year. You develop a curriculum that includes more advanced activities and materials that will prepare them for both academic and social interactions from kindergarten to adulthood. Option B, since your students have made significant advancements in their learning and development over the past year, and they seem to enjoy classroom activities where adult family members are present, you develop a curriculum that includes more advanced activities and materials, some of which are appropriate for adults, so they will have the opportunity to learn how to interact with older children and adults. Option C, since your students are children and unique individuals who learn and think in different ways than adults, you develop a curriculum that includes materials and activities that are age appropriate and assist them in learning and development for their current age. Which option do you try? Let's see what happens when we choose option B. Even though you thought your students would do well with a curriculum designed with more advanced activities that prepare them for academic and social interactions from kindergarten and beyond, you are finding that they are not responding well to the activities and materials. After having had an extremely difficult week with your students where you failed to keep them engaged in both structured activities and learning center time, you conducted research on developmentally appropriate curriculum development, and you found literature on theorist John Piaget. In reading information on Piaget, you learned that in order to create developmentally appropriate curriculum, teachers should recognize that children are not miniature versions of adults, but unique individuals who learn and think different ways compared to adults. After reading this, you realize that your students are having a difficult time staying engaged because the curriculum is geared toward older children and even adults. When to be successful, the curriculum should be geared toward your students' ages. So let's try again. This time we'll go with option C. Since implementing your newly developed classroom curriculum, the curriculum designed to meet your current students' learning and developmental needs, you have found has been extremely successful, and everyone is staying engaged during both structured activities and learning center time. Earlier this week, you were conducting research on child development as it relates to curriculum development, and you found literature on John Piaget. Upon reading information on Piaget, you learned that children are not miniature versions of adults, but unique individuals who think and learn in different ways compared to adults. And this information confirmed that you made the right choice in developing your curriculum. The key concept here: to create developmentally appropriate curriculum, teachers recognize that children are not miniature versions of adults, but unique individuals who think and learn in different ways as compared to adults. So how did you do? Hopefully you got a few right, and if not, that's okay. This proves exactly why I created this program, National CDA Training. This is entirely scenario-based learning, just like this, and is so much more fun than reading a textbook or taking tests and doing homework. All of the learning takes place as you're practicing through real-life situations in the training, and by the time you end the course, you have 3,000 more high-level experiences than you had prior to taking the training. Imagine how confident you'll feel. You're going to know how to handle new situations that arise because you've already practiced them during the training. There are a lot of things that are different about National CDA training when compared to the typical CDA trainings that are out there. And the first thing is that you can move through this training very quickly. It's self-paced, so every time you complete a class, a new one unlocks, and you can study on your own time, at your own pace, 24 hours a day. The scenario-based training, of course, is different, and you discovered some of that as we've moved through here. All of the situations are things that you would actually have happening in your classrooms. So we teach you how to handle challenging behaviors and choosing the right materials, building relationships with families, everything that you need to know to be a well-rounded teacher, you're going to learn through scenario-based training. The feedback that we're getting from our students are that these situations that you come across in our scenarios are just like the situations that they face in their own classes. And this teaches them how to handle various situations. Finally, I want to just quick mention the professional portfolio because I've talked about this a couple of times but didn't really go into it. There is a lot that goes into this portfolio. It has to have specific things in there. So what our program does is give you step-by-step guidance to prepare the portfolio. We know what they want. We know what they're looking for. So we tell you what is specifically required by the Council for Professional Recognition for this portfolio. And each training that we have, there's one component that's required for your portfolio that we tell you. So we tell you what to do, we tell you how to do it, we tell you where to put it in your portfolio with every single class so that by the end of the training, your portfolio is already complete and you're ready to go for your CDA visit. As promised, for those of you who have stayed, I do have a very special surprise for you. I said at the beginning that it's my job and my goal, it's my vision to help childcare professionals like you take that next step. And I don't want there to be any reason that you cannot get started toward your CDA today. So I'm trying something I've never done before, and I am making this beyond affordable for you. Our normal price is $9.97, and right now we have a commitment to childcare offer that we are only able to offer for a short time. It's going to be available for 48 hours following this webinar. But for only 3 payments of $179, you can get all of the 120 hours of training, and you can get your professional portfolio support and have everything you need to get your CDA. This offer is intended to help those who really want to get a CDA and start immediately. This shows the commitment is there and you're willing to do what it takes, just like I was. This is the largest discount that I've ever given. It exceeds all the scholarships we've ever granted, and we'll probably not do this again, at least not for a very long time. So 48 hours is it. After the 48 hours, the price will return to $9.97. So we're putting this out for you right now. It shows that you really want to be in the program. You really want to say yes, and you can just come up with only $179 to get started instead of the $9.97. So we know you want to succeed, and we're giving you a way to do it.